appreciate you joining us on the CHCH and Parrot Media platforms. I'm Bubba O'Neil. Well, as you all know, this podcast is about the outstanding athletes, coaches, executives, and teams that hail from this region. Today, it's a show regarding our local pro sports teams. Many years ago, Bob McCowan set the standard with Southern Ontario sports fans on the Fan 590, speaking with passion, knowledge, and conviction. Currently, there's only a few broadcasters that I can honestly say have that similar edge.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get pucks through traffic to get sticks. That's my game. And I'm like, that's your game, brother? Your game is no shots in 2 games against the Florida Panthers on the road? You're just like, that's who I am. Love it or leave it. You go, what are you talking about? You have to be better. Like, you want $13+ million this offseason. You are comparing yourself with the greats of this game, and you want that adulation from people, and you're satisfied with no shots, and you come into this game with a big old 1? He put up a 1 spot tonight.
Well, today we speak to one of those passionate individuals from the Sportsnet 590, The Fan, JD Bunkis. Welcome to the Sportsline Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Although I hate watching my own stuff or hearing my own stuff. So I feel ambushed to begin this. That was painful. I look at that and go, that's the opposite of the way you set me up, where you go, this guy's really good at his job. I saw that clip and went, that guy sucks. I hate that guy.
No, but I'm talking about the passion. I'm talking about the knowledge and the passion, which you've obviously had for many, many years. Look, hey, there's so much to talk about. And, you know, we actually, truth be told, folks, we were actually had this podcast set up for last week, but time has been beautiful for us because there's been so much that's happened in the Toronto sports world that I'm glad we're actually speaking now. But before we get to all of that, how on earth did JD Bunkis become the guy that he is, especially from where you came from? Let's let our people know.
Well, yeah, I think what you mean is that I'm from Whitehorse, Yukon, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I guess both my parents were physical education teachers. And so I just was raised with like a big time passion for sports. They, loved basketball. Both of them were basketball coaches. My mom played basketball at the University of Queens and Brock, actually. So she was at both of those. So I just was raised loving everything, all sports. We were a family that had a lot of differences, but the one thing that was the constant with just about everybody was love of sport. My dad was a massive Leaf fan. He grew up in the Ontario region. So did my mom. So it was like hockey with my dad, basketball through my mom. I grew up in the 90s on the West Coast. Like, I know the Yukon is very much the North, but it was basically boom time for Seattle sports, which was the Supersonics with Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, and the Mariners with Ken Griffey Jr. And so, yeah, it cultivated a deep love of sports teams. And when I finished my undergraduate degree at Carleton University, which is where I went and finished I got a BA there. I thought I was going to go to law school, and I was just burnt out, wanted to try something that was a passion. Sports had always been that. My mom was a guidance counselor. She funneled me towards a sports media program, which frankly I thought was kind of a joke. I thought I was basically taking a year off. And then I met people through that program that were working in this field who I think saw something in me, and that got me really motivated to try out this career. And yeah, started as an intern at the Fan, which I'm really proud of because now, I have 2 of our most successful shows at the network. So yeah, it's been a journey, it's been a ride, but yeah, it all just, I think, comes very much from my parents and to be honest, my grandfather Dave too, who just like really instilled a deep, a lifelong passion for athletics, staying active, and caring about the games and the people who are involved in them.
The neat thing to me, and I think for anyone that's in this business, is that you were able to move yourself from what appeared to me and what I was told was the technical aspect of the game into grabbing a microphone and speaking with knowledge. How did you make that transition?
To be honest, I've just always been a blabbermouth. I think that it was just like, I'm a Chatty Cathy. And so I've never been able to really keep my opinions to myself. We were talking about our mutual acquaintance and Dave Cadeau, and that's someone who really believed in me early in my career, but also I had to have meetings with him where he would tell me, hey, shut up and let the hosts form their shows. Stop bombarding them with opinions. So I think that part of it actually came with inexperience and not knowing when to close my mouth. But yeah, I was always a huge fan of sports podcasts. I was never like a big sports radio guy. It just didn't really hit me with like my generation. It was more stuff like the Bill Simmons podcast. And then there's like, Bill Burr. There were a lot of stand-up comics that I really enjoyed that were doing this. And so it was always a vision of mine once I started to like make this a bit of a reality, like working within the sports business, to be a part of the podcast world. I thought that that's where things were going. If you've ever listened to my radio programs, they've always been podcast oriented, the way the conversations go, the way the breaks go. And so I don't know. I think that transition was a little difficult because it was at a time where there were still bosses that wanted you to take a traditional route, but that was just never it for me. Like, I didn't want to be an updates guy. I didn't want to have to do a lot of the things that came with becoming an on-air personality. I was always just of the belief that if you could create something organic, be yourself, have a point of view, that the modern audience, which is, a podcast audience, would eventually find you and you build trust with them. I think that early on, people would have probably listened to me and been like, who the hell is this guy? I think there's probably still a lot of that. But now that I'm about 10 years into my career, I think that that's probably now starting to shift quite a bit.
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's to the point right now because, there, a lot of the afternoon shows, I mean, I'm obviously working during those hours. I'm doing my own podcast here, setting up for the CHCH News at 6 o'clock. So I do listen to you a lot, and I feel a little burned right now. And I understand it's sort of the summer season, and you've got to have some time off. But this 1 hour JD Bunkis podcast is really bothering me. I would prefer the 2 hour version, please. Thank you very much.
I mean, I did 2 hours yesterday. And I also did an emergency Leafs talk. So I think that I put out in the last 48 hours, like 5 hours of content. So it should be enough. Like, I can't imagine the type of person, like, we get our average listening time, right? With these podcasts and with the YouTube views. And whenever I see it, like, actually people listening through the entire thing, like today, I didn't have a guest and it's me opining for an hour. And so when people hit me with the, like, we want more, I go, I don't understand this. Like, I can't imagine the sicko like you that would be willing to hear me yammer on for an hour. I finish these shows oftentimes, and I feel like a level of embarrassment that I'm able to yammer on for this long.
Well, let's get right into it, JD.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Okay, the Blue Jays whipped the Yankees. Was it 12-5? They're now 47-38. One game out of first place. It's Canada Day. The Dome is packed. There's people tweeting that they've never heard it so loud in decades. I'm nervously watching this product right now to what my expectations should be. I heard you this morning, and you're on the bandwagon. You're on. So tell me why.
So I think that you would agree with this as someone who has been watching sports now and commenting on sports for a very long time, that you're able to pick up on sometimes it's an energy with a group. And so much of these games is about belief and chemistry. And I genuinely think that this Blue Jays team believes in themselves, that there's some form of harmony amongst the players and the fan base that is working right now. Like, part of it to me is just, it's been such a slog these last couple of years that now that these guys are seeing success and now that the fan base is seeing success, that not to overemphasize like the spiritual side of things, but that there's just a synergy right now, that there's an excitement right now that might not happen with a lot of teams in a sport where there's 162 games, that these guys are enjoying the moment, that it's refreshing for them to be cheered and not booed, that it's refreshing for the fan base to be looking forward to be going to these baseball games. And it's like, they're locked in a way that you don't see a lot of baseball teams stay at throughout the course of a regular season, especially when it's like not on a winning streak. They're just like on a winning series streak, essentially. And so I think that there have been a lot of contributors that we didn't expect were going to be, namely George Springer, who's in the highlight pack that you guys are rolling right now. The dude is having his second best season as a Blue Jay, arguably his best season as a Blue Jay at his age, 35, 36 season, when the world had written him off. Ernie Clement, somebody that was viewed as like a journeyman, temporary Band-Aid solution at third base, is raking. He's crushing left-handed hitting. They found depth pieces like Miles Straw and Eric Lauer, who have been positive contributions to this team. Like, everybody's involved. We thought that the template was going to be, hey, they're going to have 3 bats that work. Everybody else is going to suck. They're going to have 3 pitchers that work. Everybody else is going to suck. The bullpen was in tatters, or at least it was going to be viewed as something that was going to be a work in progress. And they've got so many guys that are punching above their weight class right now that it's not like they're winning these games because of one dude who's doing it. It's the entirety of the team. And so even if you feel like, okay, Ernie Clement takes a step back, well, there's probably more that should be given from Anthony Santander, or you're going to get your center fielder, Dalton Varsho, healthy, or Vladdy's going to turn it around and start to hit for more power. And so it just feels like with this group that there's enough guys that whenever somebody starts to give up a little bit of their weight or not carry as much of their weight, that somebody else is there to pick it up. And so I'm a believer. And then the second part is that the rest of the league sucks. Like, there's no good teams. That Yankees team is, compared to what they're supposed to be, embarrassments. The Red Sox just traded Rafael Devers for a relief pitcher and, a 5th starter. The Rays are scrappy. They're playing in a minor league ballpark, and who's the challenge? Like, the Orioles are a disgrace. They were supposed to be the kings of the division, and they've completely fallen off the face of the earth. Like, the threat is the Detroit Tigers. I don't know. It just feels like a very open American league, and with a Blue Jays team that's had this kind of depth, this kind of self-belief, this amount of just unsung heroes, that they're relevant. And I think they're going to be buyers at the deadline and only add to that talent base. So yeah, I'm in. I believe what is happening here is real. Do they win a World Series? Probably not. Are they going to be a playoff team and maybe finally get a playoff victory? Yeah, I think so.
Whoa, you think so? So then in that case, you're ready to give Ross Atkins a contract extension.
I didn't say that. I'll put words in my mouth now. Let's not get crazy. It's a weird feeling though, right? Like, it's strange because if you look at his offseason, it was a disaster. The Santander signing has been a bust, and yeah, okay, there's time for him to turn around. Max Scherzer's given you, like, I think 13 innings pitched for $15 million. They traded for Andrés Giménez, who, had a nice home run yesterday and is a good glove man. Nice piece, but for $100 million, that's pretty steep. They didn't do a lot. Their farm system for years has not been great. And yet here you have this team that's like kind of finally putting it together. And it's weird because part of me thinks that they could absolutely use a new general manager. I still think that. It's going to be very results-based for me, very much like the Kyle Dubas year, where it was, hey, this is it. You're going to have to put results together. You're getting an extension. But if you would have told me at the beginning of the year, hey, do you think that there's even a snowball's chance in hell that you will be just open to the idea of a Ross Atkins extension, I would have said you don't know me at all.
Oh, God. Oh. Anyway, I'm almost with you. I'm almost with you.
Yeah.
Let's switch topics. Again, so much to talk about. Last night, Mitch Marner introduced to the Vegas sports media that included Darren Millard and probably a couple others, right? That's probably it.
Yep.
Laura, roll the tape here, please, of the Vegas stuff. Like, I'm looking at him right now, and I don't know what to think. There's part of me that says, like, what went wrong in Toronto? Here's a guy that was beloved. He was like that little guy with the little guy attitude who got the job done. And now we're putting him in the category of possibly being one of Toronto's most hated athletes. Do you agree with this?
Well, I do, and some of it I think is a little unfair, but a lot of it I believe is correct. This was not just a Mitch Marner problem. This was an organizational problem. This was this was all kinds of different forces to combine for what has been ultimately a failure, because that's what it is when a 100-point player leaves your organization and you get back a depth centerman who only gets here because of potentially blackmail and also the fact that Vegas wanted to knock down his AAV by giving him an 8-year contract. Why I think that he is so reviled and will continue to be such a polarizing player over the years is because if you're from here, if you're raised as a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, there is a strong belief that that is supposed to mean something to you, that it goes beyond just being a hockey player. It's that you get the privilege of wearing the Toronto Maple Leaf. And yeah, they haven't won since 1967, but you think about the amount of players that have come through this city who are, just locally born, like local guys that were able to pivot this and turn it into lifelong admiration from this fan base, that you're supposed to understand what it would mean to win in Toronto, that it has been since 1967, that you have an opportunity to become someone that is frankly remembered as long as the city exists, right? Nothing's going to matter more. Nothing is going to matter more than a Toronto Maple Leafs championship. Not a Blue Jays World Series, not a Raptors NBA championship. This is the one that would potentially fundamentally change, I think, that the way people in the city view themselves. It's the most important one. And so the fact that he and his camp seemed so bothered from the very beginning of their contract negotiations and were fixated on things like bonuses and whether or not he was getting the same admiration as Austin Matthews was strange, and it was off-putting to people. When he signed as a restricted free agent, he signed as the 5th highest player in the NHL. And in a world where there's a salary cap, a hard salary cap, people were going to add pressure to that guy. He needed to come through. And unfortunately, over the course of that contract, I think he scored 8 goals in the postseason. Yeah, he's a primary assist guy. Yeah, some of the point per game numbers in the playoffs are all right, but it was failure after failure after failure, including multiple memorable moments where he was not able to elevate to the occasion. And so you combined that with the salary that he was making, and then 2 years of being unwilling to renegotiate on a contract that was fair to the team, that was giving something back to the community, the buy-in that he had in terms of what it meant to him to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, where he would be asked questions and he would say things like, it's because you're a god in this city. it all just combined for this feeling from people that he never really understood what it was to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. And now you add to the fact that he goes to Vegas and says at his media conference that it's something that has been on his mind for 2 years, not specifically Vegas, but moving on from Toronto, and that the pressure for him was too great and that this was not a fit for his young family. I think that people are quite upset at the idea that someone who was paid $11 million to play hockey, who failed in the postseason time and time again, would have the gall to essentially, without maybe stating it, but the underlying tone being, this is your fault, Leafs fans. That this is your fault for caring too much and being too critical of me, that I don't want to be here, that you're losing a 100-point player. I think that's too much for fans to bear, for rational fans to bear.
We, as Canadian sports media, we have a tendency, and I don't see this in a lot of American sports media, like the local American sports media. Once a guy leaves, they're gone. They don't get talked about in the United States and a lot of smaller markets. Here in our market, we tend to go back and see what this guy's doing in game number 22 of the Vegas Golden Knights. Is Mitch Marner dead to you right now?
No.
Will you care what he does?
I care what he does in the sense of I do not want him to win. Like, I'm not going to root for a player. This isn't Roy Halladay, right? Like, Roy Halladay left, and we all looked at it and said, hey, we were failing you. The team was failing you. You gave it an earnest effort over the course of your career, and they could not build a championship team around you. We're rooting for you, Roy. When we watched Philly games, we thought this was basically, that became our team. So it's not always this way. Like, that's the thing, man. Toronto gets a tough rap in terms of, oh, it's so hard on its players because there's so many places in the hockey world like Florida or Tampa or like name the California team where ultimately the fans don't really give a crap. But if you give an earnest effort in this city, if you are just go out there and lay it on the line and people respect the effort, you're going to be loved forever. Like that was the Roy Halladay thing. You never had to question his motivations. He was a true professional who worked his ass off and had a successful career here. So sometimes people root for the guy when they go to a different place. I know that it was a little ugly with Matt Sundin at the end. I personally hated it. I thought that he took way too much heat for not wanting to wave his no move. But when he was in Vancouver, look at the reception that he got when he beat the Leafs in a shootout, when he did his patented backhand and scored. People were crying in the seats for Matt Sundin. They love Matt Sundin. You think that there was anybody that was rooting against Darcy Tucker when he went to Colorado? No, like that's not the thing. What now? This reminds me more of Curtis Joseph, where a guy goes to a different destination in part because he doesn't think that they can win in Toronto, and so. Me as a proud Torontonian and a Maple Leafs fan, I'm not rooting for Marner's success. I don't care what he does. Like, I'm not rooting for his demise. I don't want him to get injured or to, be such a disappointment that he becomes like a talking point around the league. But it's a nightmare if you see him hoist the Stanley Cup. Like, again, think about how happy we were for Nazem Kadri. Kadri wins a cup, and it was celebrated in this city by people. They love Kadri because he worked his ass off and he cared about being a Toronto Maple Leaf, even though he was raised a Montreal Canadiens fan. Like, he got it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to see Marner win. I ultimately am not going to be watching him game to game. I don't think that this is going to be something that should be adjudicated in a couple of weeks. I don't want to hear how if Marner has a hot month with the Vegas Golden Knights that they really blew it. But it's going to be hard to look at the Leafs if he wins the Stanley Cup and say, yeah, they made the right choice moving off of him and maybe not some of the other guys if it doesn't go that way. But yeah, my personal belief, though, is that he wouldn't have won in Toronto, that he wasn't built for this market, that he was never going to be able to overcome the pressure. We saw it in that Montreal series when he was flipping pucks over the glass every 10 seconds. I just think some guys are not built for environments like this, and he was one of them. But yeah, he's not dead to me. I think that's too strong. Like I'm too old for that now. Like if you were talking to 21-year-old JD, I would have been far worse, far worse. Yeah.
All right, here's another factor, which in another sport. Rogers, the deal to purchase Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment is complete. Keith Pelly has already been established as a CEO. Shanahan gets whacked. Yesterday, TFC cut ties with Insigne and Bernadeschi. Last week, Masai Ujiri, parting of the ways.
Yeah.
You know what? I've been around this sports gig in this area for a long time, and I've never had any passion or any liking or even caring about a hockey ops or a general manager or anyone of that level in any sport in this city. Yet we came up together as this trusted Masai. I'm sort of bothered by Masai not being part of the Raptors. Are you?
So I don't think I'll ever, this sounds very strong, but love an executive the way that I love Masai Ujiri. Like, that guy, it's beyond what he did from a basketball standpoint. He was, for a while, like the face of the franchise. He turned this entire thing around from an absolute joke into the We the North era, to the, hey, we don't care what the rest of the world thinks about us. We're confident in Toronto. This is someone who, brought the Giants of Africa to Toronto, whose humanitarian work is known now around the globe. I think that he as a person is just an incredible representative of your city. He's a powerful speaker. I can't tell you the amount of times that like when most executives speak at a podium for a media day or for any kind of a press conference, I don't care. I know they're just going to give me corporate gobbledygook. They're going to talk to the media like, giving them very little. They don't want to give them very much insight. It's that same corporate speech that you get from pretty much all of them. Masai spoke like a human being. He was a passionate guy, and it was unbridled. And so I'm going to really miss that. I'm going to miss having a human being of Masai Ujiri's caliber as the head of this organization. Now, as for the basketball stuff, there has been a slip. And it's impossible not to notice this. It's impossible not to acknowledge this. Basically, from the championship forward, it's been a lot of misses for the Raptors. They go into the COVID season. And, well, sorry, I guess going back, they run it back, and some people were critical that he didn't trade some pieces at that point. I'm not. The Raptors were really good that year. They ran it back. They had an identity. They were tough. They wanted to prove to the world that they were more than just the Kawhi Leonard team. And it was a tough bounce in the bubble, but ultimately, I thought that team, they had the potential to go to the finals that year, truly. So you don't blow up a team that has the potential to go to the finals ever. They go into the COVID season. They decide to punt on it. They draft Scotty Barnes, who was an astute pick. But from that point forward, it was just like mistake after mistake after mistake. They traded Norm Powell for Gary Trent Jr., a guy who wanted only a 2-year contract here at big time money and never fit and never really grew as a player. Meanwhile, Norm goes on and has what is nothing short of a spectacular career for a very appropriate amount of money. Someone who was bought in and who wanted to be a Toronto Raptor. And God, how long did we fight to create a culture where that was a thing, where guys wanted to be here, where they were a part of it? They tried to do something that I think rarely works in sports, which is the 2 timeline idea of you got 1 foot in the present and 1 foot in the future with Scotty Barnes. He rubbed some of the veterans the wrong way, and the answer was not, hey, maybe we should explore using this asset in Scotty Barnes, this young star player, in a trade to build around this team. It was never that. It was like, let Fred VanVleet walk in free agency. Wait too long to trade OG Anunoby. Wait too long to trade Pascal Siakam. Trade for Jakob Poeltl, who's a useful piece, a good piece, but trade a first-round pick for him in a year where you were going to offer him $20 million in the offseason, which probably would have been able to get it done at that time. But not only that, give up a draft pick in a year where you were likely a lottery team. It was like a lot of failure. It was a lot of mistakes. And if you try to point to, again, the last 5 years of the Toronto Raptors, you got to squint to find things that work. And even right now, like they talked about rebuilding, they go through a season of a down cycle, and they're trading for Brandon Ingram, a guy who has been on the trade market for essentially 2 years, and give him a deal that is not commensurate with what he has accomplished in the league, frankly, but also with the other contracts that guys sign in free agency, like Julius Randle, also a former NBA All-Star, who ends up getting less than him. So the Quickly trade has not worked out. His signing was out of whack. It's been a lot of bad. So I'm going to miss Masai. I'm very torn about it. I definitely wasn't like, oh, hell yeah, Masai is gone, the way that I would have been, say, a year ago with Ross Atkins, or like I was when Kyle Dubas left town, or when Shanahan was fired. But if you're just looking at it from could this team use a different look? Could this team use a different direction standpoint? I do wonder if now is that time. Now the question is going to be, how different is Bobby Webster, and how complicit was he as the general manager in causing a lot of those problems over the last 5 years, and what is it going to look like moving forward?
Time is against us, my friend. We only got about like 8 minutes on this stupid Zoom call. I'm going to end on this with you. And again, you speak with such knowledge of basketball. I know it's one of your favorite sports, and it's one of the reasons why I listen to your podcast, because I'm a huge basketball fan too. And no offense to anyone out there, there's not a lot of people in the Toronto market that speak well about basketball. With that said, here in this area, of course, Southern Ontario, the Golden Horseshoe especially, Hamilton, we've been riding the OKC Thunder, NBA champion Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Hey, he just signs a $285 million Supermax deal that's going to pay him over $71 million. We're celebrating this. Now, why can you not celebrate the OKC Thunder championship like the rest of us? I've shown highlights all season long.
If you could see in my office what's across from me, it's 2 framed photos of the Glove, Gary Payton, and the Rain Man, Sean Kemp. I like, when you talk about my love of basketball, it's my first love. Like, again, both my parents were basketball coaches. That basketball that's right behind me in this shot is signed by the entire 1986 Celtics team that my parents, they got to fly down. They got to meet Casey Jones. The Celtics put them up, and they got to spend time with Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and Danny Ainge and Bill Walton. And they really helped shape my love of the game. I grew up playing it at a high level. I care. Again, basketball is my first love. There was a basketball in my crib. I love the Seattle Supersonics. And they were they and the Leafs, I don't know which came first, but probably the Sonics. But if you had to ask me, what are my anchor teams, right? Sonics and the Maple Leafs. And the Blue Jays came later, and the Seahawks came later for me. Other sports teams I've really loved. I love the Argos now. I'm going to the game this Friday. I go to a lot of CFL games. But I was actually a Ticats fan first, by the way. I met the 99 winning team. I also have a framed plaque. I met Joe Monfort at a Planet Hollywood. How's that for 90s? He and Danny Mac. And they signed it for me. They were great to me, but I'm a turncoat and changed for the city because I just basically became a season ticket holder. And I went, I got to jump on the local team. I'm sorry. It just is what it is. But I can never forgive the way that Oklahoma City stole the Seattle Supersonics. There's a documentary that I sent to you called Sonicsgate that outlines it. It's free on YouTube if anybody's interested in it. But Seattle didn't just lose their basketball team. This wasn't like a market that didn't support basketball. It's basketball first in Seattle. Look around the NBA and see how many players in the NBA are from Seattle. Really, really good players that are from Seattle. It is part of the fabric of that community. And they were hijacked flat out by rich oil men from Oklahoma City who had relationships with the commissioner at the time, David Stern. And it's ugly. And it spoiled part of my love for sport. It took away a lot of the childlike love that I have for these games. And so it's almost like a cruel twist of fate, like Simpsons Monkey Paw, hey, the Sonics will win a championship someday. And I go, yes, agree. And they'll have a Canadian. And I go, oh my God, 2 Canadians? And one of them will be the MVP in the league. And I'm like, oh, this is too much to believe. And then it turns out that they're an Oklahoma City team. And so this wasn't the Raiders that have moved around forever and ever. This was the Seattle Supersonics. They're named after the supersonic jet, created in Seattle, the Boeing jet. And they couldn't keep the namesake. They couldn't keep the right. They became this Thunder team, the Zombie Sonics, as Bill Simmons called them. And so to see them win is my number one sports nightmare. It's the worst thing that's happened to me in sports other than the Sonics leaving. And so as much as I love Shea when he puts on the Canada uniform, and as much as I am a proud basketball fan who's been waiting for this after seeing bust after bust, Anthony Bennett come through the league, to actually see Canada Canadians do this country's program proud, it's nothing but pure heartbreak for me. I can barely stand it. I can barely talk about it. I can't look at it. It's the easiest way to troll me. And I sports hate Shea, which is a tragedy because I love Canada basketball. Again, if you were going to ask me, what are your favorite things to watch? It's Canada basketball at the international stage. And man, it's a knife in the heart. It really is. I wore my Sonics gear watching Game 7. I watched Tyrese Halliburton go down to the floor, and I thought, here it is, my nightmare. It's come true. So respect to Hamilton, respect to the Golden Horseshoe, but zero respect ever for the Oklahoma City from this guy.
Hey, a lot of respect for you, and this has been an outstanding sports conversation, and I hope we can do this again. I'm sure that the way these sports teams are going, and I really want to discuss with you about the Argonauts and what's going on in Toronto and all that, but that's a whole nother podcast. JD, outstanding stuff. Come on. Your guy's coming back soon, though. Not this week, though.
Week 7 or 8, but
not
it's
this week,
the quarterbacking. I don't know. You got to be really embarrassed if you lost a Grey Cup to John Arbuckle. I'm sorry. I love Arbuckle, but this is how do you continue as a franchise knowing you laid a Grey Cup down to Arbuckle, who I'm watching every week going, this guy won? He was like, okay, I guess so. Anyway, I'll see Ticats fans on Friday down at the game.
Can't wait to do this again, JD. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Yeah,
right on.
Anytime.
Folks, that's the Sportsline Podcast for the day. And if you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports. Again, we talk about the passion. Man, it was just coming out of everyone's ears and mouths with this last podcast here. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote the Sportsline Podcast, we want to hear from you. Please hit that thumbs up, subscribe button, like button. If you have something to say, we always appreciate your comments. They always make us better. The wonderful people that make the Sportsline Podcast possible, thank you so very much. We'll see you real soon.